Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to today's press conference. Today we will brief you on the economic data. We have invited Mr. Fu Linghui, spokesperson and chief economist of the National Bureau of Statistics and Director General of the Department of Comprehensive Statistics of the National Bureau of Statistics. He will brief you on the national economic performance of October and take your questions. Now I give the floor to Mr. Fu. Thank you. I will first brief you on the major economic indicators in October, and then I will take the questions from the media. In October, economic performance was generally stable. Under the strong leadership of Central Committee of the Communist Party of China with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, all regions and departments strictly implemented the decisions and arrangements made by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council, adhered to the general principle of pursuing progress while ensuring stability, focused on keeping employment, businesses, market and expectations stable, made thorough efforts to develop a unified national market, and facilitated the dual circulation of domestic and international markets. The production and supply grew steadily, employment was generally stable, price situation was improved, and new growth drivers were cultivated and expanded. The national economy maintained a generally stable momentum with steady progress. First, industrial production sustained growth with good momentum for equipment manufacturing and high-tech manufacturing. In October, the total value added of industrial enterprises above the designated size grew by 4.9% year-on-year, or up by 0.17% month-on-month. In terms of sectors, the value added of mining went up by 4.5% year-on-year, manufacturing up by 4.9%, and the production of supply of electricity, heat power, gas and water up by 5.4%. That of equipment manufacturing increased by 8% year-on-year, and that of high-tech manufacturing increased by 7.2%, respectively 3.1 percentage points and 2.3 percentage points faster than the overall level. The value added of SOEs was up by 6.7% year-on-year. That of shareholding enterprises was up by 5.2%. That of enterprises funded by foreign investors or investors from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan up by 4%. And that of private enterprises up by 2.1%. In terms of products, the output of 3D printing devices, new energy vehicles, and industrial robots grew by 30.8%, 19.3%, and 17.9% year-on-year, respectively. In the first 10 months, the total value added of industrial enterprises above the designated size was up by 6.1% year-on-year. In October, the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index was 49.0%. The Production and Operation Expectation Index was 52.8%. In the first 9 months, the total profits made by industrial enterprises above the designated size were 5,372.2 billion yuan, up by 3.2% year-on-year. And second, service sector grew steadily. In October, the index of services production went up by 4.6% year-on-year. That of information transmission, software and information technology services, leasing and business services, and finance grew by 13.0%, 8.2%, and 5.6% year-on-year respectively. 8.4, 3.6, and 1.0 percentage points faster than the growth of the index of services production. In the first 10 months, the index of services production increased by 5.7% year-on-year. In the first 9 months, the business revenue of service enterprises grew by 7.6% year-on-year. In October, the business activity index for services stood at 50.2%. The business expectation index for services was 56.1%. Specifically, the business activity index for industries like railway transportation, air transportation, postal services, accommodation, and culture, sports, and entertainment stayed within the high expansion range of 60% and above. Third, market sales expanded. In October, the retail sales of consumer goods reached 4,629.1 billion yuan, up by 2.9% year-on-year, or 0.16% point month on month. The retail sales of consumer goods in urban areas reached 4,002.1 billion yuan, up by 2.7% year-on-year, and that in rural areas stood at 627 billion yuan, up by 4.1%. Grouped by consumption patterns, the sales of goods were 109.2 billion yuan, up by 2.8%. The income of catering was 519.9 billion yuan, up by 3.8%. Consumption of basic living goods and certain upgraded goods grew fast. The sales of grain, oil and food, communication equipment, cultural and office supplies, and sports and recreational articles went up by 9.1%, 23.2%, 13.5%, and 10.1% respectively. In the first 10 months, the total sales of consumer goods reached 41,216.9 billion yuan, up by 4.3% year-on-year. The online sales reached 12,791.6 billion yuan, up by 9.6% year-on-year. The online sales of physical goods were 10,398.4 billion yuan, up by 6.3%, accounting for 25.2% of the total retail sales of consumer goods. In the first 10 months, the retail sales of services went up by 5.3% year-on-year, 0.1 percentage points faster than the previous year. Than the first 3 quarters. The retail sales of culture, sports and leisure services, communication information services, tourism consultation and rental services, and transportation services grew fast. Fourth, investment in fixed assets declined year-on-year, and investment in manufacturing sustained growth. In the first 10 months, the investment in fixed assets, excluding rural households, reached 40,891.4 billion yuan, down by 1.7% year-on-year. The investment in fixed assets was up by 1.7%, with investment in real estate development deducted. The investment in infrastructure declined by 0.1% year-on-year, that in manufacturing grew by 2.7%, and that in real estate development declined by 14.7%. The floor space of newly built commercial buildings sold was 719.82 million square meters, down by 6.8% year-on-year. The total sales of newly built commercial buildings were 6,901.7 billion yuan, down by 9.6%. By industry, the investment in the primary industry went up by 2.9% year-on-year, then in the second industry up by 4.8%, and then in the tertiary industry down by 5.3%. The private investment declined by 4.9% year-on-year, or grew by 0.2%, with investment in real estate development deducted. Among high-tech industries, the investment in information services, aerospace vehicle and equipment manufacturing, and computer and office device manufacturing grew by 32.7%, 19.7% and 4.1% year-on-year respectively. In October, the investment in fixed assets, excluding rural households, declined by 1.62% month-on-month. Fifth, imports and exports of goods sustained growth, and trade structure continued to optimize. In October, the total value of imports and exports of goods was 3,702.8 billion yuan, up by 0.1% year-on-year. Specifically, total exports was 2,171.6 billion yuan, down by 0.8%, and total import was 1,531.1 billion yuan, up by 1.4%. In the first 10 months, total imports and exports of goods was 37,309 billion yuan, up by 3.6% year-on-year, and total exports was 22,114.6 billion yuan, up by 6.2%, and total import was 15,194.4 billion yuan. In the first 10 months, the import and export general trade went up by 2.3%, accounting for 63.4% of the total value of import and export. Trade with Belt and Road partners grew by 5.9%, and by private enterprises went up by 7.2%. The export of mechanical and electrical products grew by 8.7%, accounting for 60.7% of total exports. 6. Employment was generally stable, and the urban surveyed unemployment rate went down. In the first 10 months, the urban surveyed unemployment rate averaged 5.2%. The urban surveyed employment rate was 5.1% in October, 0.1 percentage points lower than the previous month. The surveyed unemployment rate of population with local household registration was 5.3%, and that of population with non-local household registration was 4.7%, among which the rate of population with non-local agricultural household registration was 4.5%. The urban surveyed unemployment rate in 31 major cities was 5.1%, 0.1 percentage points lower than that of previous month. The employees of enterprises worked 48.4 hours per week on average. Seventh, consumer price turned from decline to increase, and decline of producer prices for industrial products narrowed. In October, CPI went up by 0.2% year-on-year, while in the previous month it was down by 0.3%. Prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol went down by 1.6% year-on-year, clothing up by 1.7%, housing up by 0.1%, articles and services for daily use up by 1.9%. Transportation and communication down by 1.5%, education, culture, and recreation up by 0.9%, medical services and healthcare up by 1.4%, and other articles and services up by 12.8%. Among the prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol, the price for pork went down by 16%, fresh vegetables down by 7.3%, fresh fruits down by 2%, and grain down by 0.7%. The core CPI, excluding food and energy, went up by 1.2% year-on-year, 0.2 percentage points higher than that of previous month. In the first 10 months, the CPI went down by 0.1% year-on-year. In October, the producer prices for industrial products went down by 2.1% year-on-year. A decline narrowed by 0.2 percentage points compared with that of the previous month, and the month-on-month growth was 0.1%. The purchasing prices for industrial producers went down by 2.7% year-on-year. A decline narrowed by 0.4 percentage points, and the month-on-month growth was 0.1%. In the first 10 months, the producer prices for industrial products and the purchasing prices for industrial producers dropped by 2.7 and 3.2% respectively compared with that of the previous period last year. Generally speaking, the economy was generally stable in October with solid progress in transformation, upgrading, and continued growth of new growth drivers. However, there are many unstable and uncertain factors in the external environment. The massive structural adjustment face significant pressure, and stable economic development is confronted with multiple challenges. In the next stage, we must follow the guidance of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, thoroughly implement the guiding principles of the fourth plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee, adhere to the general principle of pursuing progress while ensuring stability, and expand domestic demand on all fronts. We must focus on keeping employment, businesses, market, and expectations stable, promote the implementation and improve the effectiveness of macroeconomic policies, deepen reform and opening up comprehensively, intensify the innovation-driven development, and effectively pursue higher quality economic growth and appropriately increase economic output. Now the floor is open to questions. Thank you. From the statistics, how do you assess the economic performance in October? What are the highlights and positive changes? In October, under the strong leadership of the Party Central Committee, all regions and departments firmly implemented the decisions and instructions of the Central Committee of the CPC and State Council, worked harder to stabilize employment, businesses, market and expectations, built stronger the dual circulation, and production and demand grew steadily. Employment and prices were generally stable, and the trend of upgrading continued. Economic performance continued to develop steadily. There are several features. First, production and supply continued to grow. Agricultural production was in good form. The area of autumn grain crops steadily grew, with per unit yield increasing. A harvest expected, and autumn and winter sowing is up and running. Industrial production remains generally stable. In October, value added by industrial enterprises above the designated size grew by 4.9%. Among them, equipment manufacturing grew by 8%, which is significantly faster than the average level, playing a key role supporting the growth of industry. Services grew steadily. In October, the index of service production grew by 4.6% year-on-year. The growth was slightly lower than the previous month, mainly due to the rise in the same period last year. From the combined level of the 2 years, it was generally stable. The 2 holidays boosted the increase in services. In October, the index of accommodation and catering grew by 3.9%, 2.6 percentage points faster than the previous month. Second, sales in the market continue to expand. The special initiatives to boost consumption continue to take effect. Holiday economy is driving the retail of goods and services. In October, total retail sales of consumer goods grew by 2.9% year-on-year. Goods included in the consumer goods trade-in program grew fast. In October, the sales of communication equipment and cultural and office supplies grew by 23.2% and 13.5% respectively. Increased travels during the holidays gave rise to the consumption in tourism and culture. For the 10-month, service retail sales grew by 5.3% year-on-year, faster than the sales of goods. Third, employment was generally stable. Surveyed urban unemployment continued to decline. In October, the urban surveyed unemployment rate was 5.1%, 0.1 percentage points lower than the previous month, and declining for 2 months in a row. Unemployment for people with rural registration was 4.5%, 0.2 points lower than the previous month. And this is significantly lower than the general level of surveyed unemployment rate. With growing unfavorable external implications and many challenges to the economy, China has maintained a generally stable employment and continued to improve the employment of key groups, which is vital to protecting people's well-being and promoting development. Fourth, prices showed positive changes. The CPI turned from decline to increase. In October, CPI grew by 0.2% year-on-year. It was down by 0.3% in the previous month. Core CPI, excluding the prices of food and energy, grew by 1.2% year-on-year, 0.2 percentage points larger than the previous month, and is growing for 6 months in a row. The decline in PPI continued to shrink. In October, PPI dropped by 2.1% year-on-year, 0.2 percentage points narrower than the previous month, and this decline has been going on for 3 months in a row. The efforts to regulate market competition continue to take effect. In October, the prices of lithium-ion battery and PV equipment and devices manufacturing grew by 0.2 and 0.6 percentage points month-on-month. Fifth, transformation is continuing. High-tech manufacturing saw a sound growth. In October, value added by high-tech manufacturing above designated size grew by 7.2%. From export, for the first 10 months, export of high-tech products grew by 7.3%. Modern services developed soundly. In October, production index of information transmission, software and IT services, and leasing and commercial services grew by 13 and 8.2%. The integration of digital and real economy advanced steadily. In October, value added by digital products manufacturing grew by 6.7% year-on-year. For the first 10 months, online retail sales of tangible goods grew by 6.3%. Green transition is also taking effect. In October, the production of NEVs and lithium-ion power batteries for vehicles grew by 19.3% and 30.4%. We should also see that the environment and the international situation remain complex and severe. There are many unstable and uncertain factors. Domestically, cyclical and structural problems are intertwined, giving many difficulties to the economy. Going forward, it's important to implement the guiding principles of the Fourth Plenary Session, implement the instructions of the CPC Central Committee, strive to stabilize employment, enterprises, market and expectations, stabilize the fundamentals of the economy, foster new quality productive forces, and maintain the continued healthy development of the economy. SEMP.
My first question is on fixed asset investment. In the first 3 quarters, it decreased by 0.5% year-on-year, and from January to October, it decreased also. What's the next step development? What's your comment? And the next question is on the import and export decreasing. And it had been decreased by 1% in October, and import increased by 1%, but it didn't reach market expectation. What's the reason, and what's your expectation? Thank you. For the first 10 months, fixed income investment decreased by 1.7%. If we deduct the factor of prices, fixed income investment actually increased a little, and physical volume of investment actually increased. And I'd like to share with you some of my opinions here. First, the slowing down of investment growth is caused by various factors. By investment entities, it's because of complicated external environment and fierce competition in the domestic market. Profit has been decreasing, so the entities are cautious when it comes to investing. And weak corporate profitability has also caused the investment. And in terms of structures, real estate development account for a large part here. So the adjustment of the real estate economy contributed a lot here. From the first 10 months, investment in real estate development decreased by 14.7% year-on-year. If we deduct the factors in the real estate sector, investment actually increased by 1.7% year-on-year. So we can see that the real estate investment actually contributed to 3% of decrease in the total investment. Also, it is also because that China is in a phase of transitioning from old to new growth drivers. This also plays a role here. And second, though the growth rate of investment has slowed down a little bit, but the structure is being improved. We are actively promoting the improving and upgrading of traditional industries, manufacturing industries, and the emergent manufacturing is growing and expanding. In the first 10 months, investment in manufacturing has increased by 2.7%. It's faster than total investment, and accounting for 25.6% of total investment, and it's 1.1% higher year-on-year. Investment in certain high-end industries has been intensified. The deep integration of tech innovation and industrial innovation has led to the relatively fast investment growth in high-tech sectors. In the first 10-month investment in aerospace, craft, and equipment manufacturing has increased by 19.7% year-on-year, and that number for investment in information service up by 32.7%. Investment in green transitioning is also growing. We're deepening energy and green transition. Investment in these areas has increased fast. In the first 10 months, investment in solar, wind, nuclear, and hydro power increased by 10.4%. Third, there's still great potential and space for investment in China. When it comes to the changes in investment growth rate, we need to look at it from an objective and comprehensive angle. To look at it with a long-term view, China is still the world's largest developing country. There's still immense potential for investment for China to be a middle-income country. So in terms of industrial development, we need to solidify foundation of real economy, promote the integrated development of tech innovation and industrial innovation, speed up the cultivation and expanding of new quality productive forces. So we need to increase investment. By sectors and regions, we need to address the problem of unbalanced and insufficient development. This also requires more investment. And also there needs more investment in areas including education, medicine, housing, basic health care, and so on. Going forward, we need to focus on the goals of high-quality development, improve investment structure, and further motivate investment in civil areas, and to have investment play a better role in expand domestic demand and so on, improving people's well-being. So this is about fixed income investment.
On a question on trade, there are several points I wish to respond. Generally speaking, while trade protectionism is on the rise globally and uncertainties in trade grow, China's import and export of goods continue to grow, showing strong resilience and vitality. For the first 10 months, The total import and export of goods grew by 3.6% year-on-year. Export grew by 6.2%. This is a result of China's firm commitment to expanding, opening up, diversifying foreign trade, and efforts to upgrade industries, increase competitiveness, integrate domestic and foreign trade, and create a favorable environment for enterprises. In October, there are several features with regard to import and export of trade. First, it is generally stable. The total import and export of goods grew by 0.1%, slower than the previous months, mainly due to the irrelevant high levels over the same period last year. In September last year, due to the typhoons, some import and export were postponed to October. So the base level of October last year was high. If we combine the levels of September and October, we can see that this year's import and export were generally stable. In particular, in October, despite this high base level, the import of goods grew by 1.4% and growing for 5 months in a row. This is also helpful for expanding global trade demand. Second, trade diversification is steadily advancing. Despite high tariffs, China's export and import with the U.S. dropped. But China is committed to expanding, opening up, and in particular voluntary and unilateral opening up, and promoting trade exchanges with all countries on the basis of mutual benefit. Our import and export with ASEAN and EU grew rapidly, robustly sustaining the growth of trade. For the first 10 months, the import and export with ASEAN and EU grew by 9.1% and 4.9% respectively. The import and export with Belt and Road partners grew by 5.9%, which is still very high. And third, foreign trade companies continue to release vitality. In this year, in face of the growing factors of uncertainty and instability, all departments have been supporting the development of foreign trade companies, and these companies are also proactively exploring markets. For the first 10 months, the import and export of the private sector grew by 7.2%, much faster than the overall import and export of trade. The import and export of foreign invested companies grew by 2.9%. Fourth, export drivers are improving. As China's industries upgrade, products are more tech-oriented, and export products are more competitive. Export structure continues to improve. Mechanical and electrical products and high-tech products are increasingly become important drivers for export. For the first 10 months, the export of mechanical and electrical products grew by 8.7%, accounting for 60.7% of total export. That of IC and cars grew by 24.7% and 14.3% respectively. The export of high-tech products is also positive. And for the first 10 months, the export grew by 7.3% in terms of high-tech products. Generally speaking, despite sluggish world economic recovery and the challenges and risks, China's commitment to high standard opening up will not change. There are many conditions supporting the growth of foreign trade, and foreign trade will show more resilience. We will continue to expand high-level opening up, expand trade exchanges with all countries on the basis of mutual benefit, stabilize the foundations of foreign trade, help the companies vulnerable to the impacts, and increase and improve the healthy development of foreign trade. Fostering new drivers and upgrading the economic structure will help economic development. So what are the new progress in this year in this regard? Thank you. Restructuring and fostering new drivers are priorities in pursuing high-quality development. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, China's economy has changed from high-speed growth to high-level, high-quality development. And over the years, we have stayed committed to high-quality development and promoted the transformation of development models and economic structure. While traditional industries grow slower, There are growing demands in the digital economy and platform economy and so on. Emerging industries are developing rapidly, and industrial upgrade is picking up momentum. From this year, China has made positive progress in adjusting the economic structure and fostering new growth drivers. There are several features. First, new demands in the market is giving rise to new demand from consumption. With technological advances and changes in consumption ideas, there are new models, new businesses, and new scenarios, and the consumption of digital, green, and smart products grew rapidly, and service consumption is expanding. For the first 10 months, the online sales of tangible goods accounted for 25.2% in total sales, 0.2 percentage points than the first 9 months. Sales in high energy efficiency home appliances and NEVs grew rapidly. Smart home appliances and smart furniture saw their demands growing. Sales of cultural, sports, and recreational services and tourism, consulting and leasing services maintained double-digit growth. From investment, we have focused on key areas and weak links, and investment in high-tech sector grew fast. Investment in new energy, new materials, and AI grew rapidly, and the investment is having higher quality. For the first 10 months, investment in aviation, spacecraft, and equipment manufacturing grew by 19.7%. Investment in IT services grew by 32.7%. In export, as China grows stronger in industrial technologies, the export of mechanical and electrical products and high-tech products is playing a greater role. For the first 10 months, the export of mechanical and electrical products accounted for 60.7% in total export. Second, industrial upgrade is picking up speed. Manufacturing is heading toward mid and high end, and equipment manufacturing is significantly supported to industrial production. For the first 10 months, value added of equipment manufacturing enterprises above designated size grew by 9.5%, accounting for 36.1% of the total industry and contributing to 58.7% of the total value added of industries. With the integrated development of services and advanced manufacturing, modern services is developing soundly. For the first 3 quarters, information transmission, software and IT technology services, leasing, and commercial services combined account for 16.3% of the tertiary industry, up by 0.8 percentage points than the previous year. Third, emerging industries expanding, playing a larger and leading supporting role. The green and low-carbon transition, digital economy, and AI is giving new and strong impetus to economic development. For the 10 months, the value added of digital industrial enterprises above designated size grew by 9.5% year-on-year, that of smart equipment manufacturing and electronic components and equipment manufacturing grew by 11.9% and 12.3% respectively. New energy, new materials, aviation, space, and low-altitude economy have huge potential. Quantum science and technology, biomanufacturing, and embodied AI have great prospects. They may become new pillars and will offset the decline of traditional sectors. Generally speaking, China's economy is still undergoing structural adjustment, but from future developments, with developing new quality productive forces and growing new drivers, the high-quality development of the economy is still positive. Going forward, we will focus on high-quality development, promote the integrated development of STI and industrial innovation, continue to improve the economic structure, foster new quality productive forces, and promote both effective upgrade in quality and reasonable growth in quantity. Thank you. Prices is also a key issue. In October, CPI showed positive changes. The month-on-month growth expanded, and year-on-year change turned from negative to positive. In month-on-month terms, in October, CPI grew by 0.2%, which is 0.1 percentage points larger than the previous month. This was driven mainly by the higher consumption in the holidays and the rise in industrial consumer goods. First, during the holidays, the demand for travels was high, and which drove up the prices of transport and accommodation. The services prices grew by 0.2% month-on-month, pushing up CPI by 0.07 percentage points. Hotel and flight tickets and tourism grew by 8.6%, 4.5%, and 2.5% respectively. Second, the growing demand for catering also gave rise to food prices. In October, food prices grew by 0.3% month-on-month. That of fresh vegetables, mutton, fresh fruits, shrimps and crab, and beef grew within 0.5% and 4.3% month-on-month. Third, industrial consumer goods grew month-on-month. In October, prices of industrial consumer goods, excluding energy, grew by 0.3% month-on-month, pushing up CPI by 0.07 percentage points. On year-on-year terms, CPI grew by 0.2%, and the previous month it was down by 0.3%. Core CPI grew by 1.2% year-on-year, and this is 0.2 percentage points larger than the previous month and growing for 6 months in a row. The CPI change from negative to positive was mainly due to the improving supply-demand relations in the domestic market and the rise of service prices in the industrial consumer goods. First, service prices are growing. The holidays is a time when more consumption in travels, culture, and sports took place, which pushed up service prices. The service prices in October grew by 0.8%, 0.2 percentage points higher than previous months. The flight tickets and hotel prices grew significantly. The upgrading of consumption continues. Higher demand for quality social services also push up prices. In October, the prices for healthcare and domestic services grew significantly. And second, industrial products grew steadily. The special initiatives to boost consumption and regulation to regulate the disorderly competition pushed up the prices of industrial consumer goods. In October, the prices of industrial consumption goods, excluding energy, grew by 2% year-on-year, growing for 6 months in a row. That of home equipment, durable cultural and recreational products, and articles of daily use grew within 2.4% and 5%. The decline of the prices of petrol-powered cars fell below 2.3%. And third, the impact of food and energy prices was lower. China now has sufficient supply of food and grain, and there is lower international energy prices. These all led to the continuous decline in domestic food and energy prices. In October, the decline in food and energy prices was smaller, so the impact on CPI became smaller. In October, food and energy prices dropped by 2.9% and 2.4% respectively, 1.5 and 0.3 percentage points lower than the previous month. The rise of international gold prices also affected the domestic market and affected CPI. Other measures to promote reasonable price bounce back. The CPI in October showed positive changes, but there is still a lack in market demand, and the prices remain generally low. Going forward, we will continue to expand domestic demand, promote the development of a unified national market, improve market competition environment, promote the industrial capacity governance in key areas, improve supply-demand relations, and promote the reasonable bounce back of prices. Thank you.
The effort to achieve the annual economic and social development goals has entered the home stretch. According to the data from the first 10 months, can we smoothly realize the goal of annual economic and development? Thank you for your question. Since the beginning of this year, we've faced multiple challenges. The complicated changes in the international environment and unfavorable external influence, supply is stronger than demand in the domestic market, and relatively low prices. But with the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee, all regions and departments are strengthening the implementation of more productive macro policies to promote the building of a unified national market, deepening reform and furthering opening up, strengthening innovation-driven development. So the economic development has faced the pressures and has achieved stable growth. Going forward, despite these challenges and risks, the supporting conditions and basic trend for long-term economic growth haven't changed. With growing and expansion of high-quality productive forces and macro policies, expanding market space, we have favorable conditions for realizing our goals. First, economic performance is generally stable. Judging by the 4 indicators of macroeconomic performance, our economic growth is still stable, which laid a solid foundation for achieving our goals. And the economy has generated relatively fast growth. In the first 3 quarters, GDP grew by 5.2% year-on-year. The growth rate is among the top in major economies. In the first 10 months, value added of industrial enterprises above a designated size and service production index increased by 6.1% and 5.7% year-on-year. Employment rate and prices remain generally stable. I also shared with you in my briefing. In October, surveyed unemployment rate, urban unemployment rate decreased a little bit, and CPI also turned from decrease to increase. And there's also basic equilibrium in international balance of payments. In the first 10 months, import and export of goods increased by 3.6% year-on-year, and in the end of October, foreign exchange reserve is stabilized at $3.3 trillion. And second, we continue to release potential for demand. In the first 10 months, the retail of social retail products increased by 4.3%. It's faster than the first half of this year. And consumption on tourism, recreational products, sports products, and online products is still very active, which inject new impetus into the expansion of consumption. And we are committed to expanding, opening up, and have been diversifying our market. So it's resilient when it comes to our export. In the first 10 months, our import and export to ASEAN, the EU, and Belt and Road partner countries increased by 9.1, 4.9, 5.9%. It's faster than the total import and export growth rate. So going forward, we need to strengthen the dual circulation. It will further expand market demand. And third, we have been continuing to nurture and strengthen new quality productive forces. We've accelerated the development of AI, digital economy, green economy, and other new quality productive forces. They have all injected new impetus into high-quality development. In the first 10 months, smart unmanned drones, intelligent in-vehicle equipment, their value added increased by 54.7%, 25.5% increase year-on-year. In the first 10 months, bio-based chemical fiber and carbon fiber and their synthesized production increased by 18.9%, 12.8% year-on-year. Fourth, macro policies continue to play effect. Since the beginning of this year, we are implementing more proactive and effective macro policies. With the promotion of the building of a unified national market, we've expanded demand and increased production, which has promoted to the economic circulation, which played an important role in stabilizing economic performance. Also, relevant departments has rolled out a financial tool of 500 billion yuan new policy tools and take effective measures when it comes to outstanding line of local government debt. This all contributed to the growth of the economy. Also, we need to see that there are also other positive factors, including the demand and supply relationship and the profitability of companies. In October, PPI, the decrease rate has continued to narrow. In the first 9 months, the profitability of companies above a designated size increased by 3.2%. So in general, our economy is still stable with favorable conditions, and it's resilient with potential, especially with the successful convening of the fourth plenary session of the 20th Party Committee. We have drawn out a blueprint for the next 5 years, so we are confident that the economy will generate stable progress. Next question, please.
So how was the consumer market recovering in October? What was the consumer of tangible goods and services like? And did the holiday spending have a big pulling effect for the overall data? Thank you. Consumption concerns economic development and also people's well-being. This year, all regions and departments have advanced the special initiatives to boost consumption, expanded the consumer goods trade-in programs, and expanded digital and services consumption, expanded cultural and sports consumption, which further unleashed the potential in consumption. For the first 10 months, total sales of consumer goods grew by 4.3%. Retail sales of services grew by 5.3%. In October, driven by the 2 holidays and the policies to boost consumption, market sales were generally stable, consumption structure continued to improve, and emerging consumption continued to expand. On the sales of goods driven by consumption upgrade and consumer goods trade-in policies, the sales of goods grew steadily and the structure was improved and upgraded. First, the retail of some goods of basic need grew fast. Now the people require higher quality of consumption. They focus more on the quality and brand of products. The sales of some products for basic living needs grew relatively quick. In October, the sales of food and oil and groceries grew by 9.1% and 7.4% respectively year-on-year. This is faster than the general growth of retail sales. Second, the sales of upgraded products grew soundly. Now consumption structure is upgraded. The people have larger demand in cultural, sports, and recreational products, which given rise to the sales of products. In October, the sales of sports and recreational products and cosmetics grew by 10.1% and 9.6% respectively. Third, the sales of some trade-in products continue to grow. The policies continue to take effect, in particular on the sales of relevant products. In October, the sales of communication equipment and cultural and office supplies grew by 23.2% and 13.5% respectively, both significantly faster than the growth of sales of consumer goods. On services consumption, now consumption is upgrading at a faster pace, and the services consumption is becoming an important growth driver. Driven by the holidays in October, services consumption continued to grow fast. For the first 10 months, the year-on-year growth of the sales of services was 0.1 percentage points higher, 0.9 percentage points higher than the first 3 quarters. First, cultural and tourism services grew soundly. All regions are developing sports events and performance, and consumption in culture, tourism, and recreation transport services grew fast. For the first 10 months, retail sales of tourism, consulting and leasing services, and cultural, sports, and recreational services maintained higher than 10% growth. Second, IT services grew quickly. Digital, audiovisual, and online entertainment services see growing demand, and sales in relevant sectors grew quickly. In the first 10 months, IT services grew by 2-digit, and in the holidays, people dined out more often, so the income of catering grew more quickly in October. From emerging consumption, digital and green consumption are expanding, robustly driving the growth of consumption. For the first 10 months, nationwide online sales grew by 9.6% year-on-year. That of tangible goods grew by 6.3%, which is faster than the growth of total sales. the sales of instant retail and live stream e-commerce transaction both maintained double-digit growth. In the first 10 months, the sales of NEVs continue to grow rapidly. And China is now at a critical stage of consumption upgrade. There is huge space for consumption in culture, tourism, and healthcare. The silver economy and first-mover economy are quickly developing. This is also bringing new momentum to consumption. Generally speaking, the pro-consumption policies continue to take effect and sales remain stable. We should also see that the confidence and capability of consumption still need to be enhanced and internal driving forces need to be strengthened. We should continue to follow the guidance and the instructions of the CPC Central Committee and State Council, implement well the measures of special initiatives on boosting consumption, proactively stabilize employment and increase income, provide more and better supply and improve the consumption environment so that we can better unleash the potential in consumption.
Employment is a question of people's concern, so what's the performance of our job market in October? Thank you for your question. Employment is the foundation of people's well-being. The Party Central Committee highly values employment. Since the beginning of this year, all regions and departments have earnestly implemented policies to promote high quality and full employment, to support companies to recruit and expand headcounts. And as the policies have focused on the employment of key groups, all these measures have promoted to the general stability of the job market. Given the data of October, the surveyed urban unemployment rate has decreased and key groups have maintained a stable employment. So first, the national surveyed urban unemployment rate keeps dropping. Looking at the monthly change, due to the influx of new graduates into the labor market in July and August, the unemployment rate increased. But with the graduates finding jobs in September, the rate decreased by 5.2%. That's 0.1 percentage point lower compared with last month. And in October, it continues to drop to 5.1%. And second, the unemployment rate of prime age workers remained stable. People in 30 to 59 years old have maintained stable employment. And in October, people of that age group, their unemployment rate is 3.8%. That's 0.1 percentage point lower than last month. And third, unemployment for key groups such as migrant workers decreased. In October, surveyed urban unemployment rate for rural migrant workers stood at 4.5%. That's 0.2 percentage point lower than last month. With the end of the graduation season, the employment of young people is better. With the challenges from the external environment, our employment has remained stable. This is because of the services industry employing more people and the stable economic performance and other policies. This is hot one. So going forward, we need to see the favorable conditions of a stable economy, the cultivation of new quality productive forces, and policies stabilizing economy. But also we need to see the challenges that certain sectors and key groups are facing pressures to find jobs, and it's also difficult to recruit. So we need to focus on promoting a stable and sound development of economy, step up transitioning of traditional industries and cultivating new quality productive forces to expand recruitment space, and also step up relevant policies to promote high quality employment to continue improve people's well-being. Next question, please. I'm more focused on industrial production. How do you comment the performance in October? What are the positive signals? Since the beginning of this year, though the international environment is complicated, competition in domestic market is fierce, but with more proactive and effective macro policies and more support for real economy, our industrial production is still progressing. in general, the volume is expanding and the structure has been improved. Given the data in October, industrial production is stable and is getting smarter, more high-end and greener. First, industrial production is generally stable. In October, value added of industrial enterprises above designated size increased by 4.9% year-on-year. It plays an important role in stabilizing the economy and promoting development. By sectors, 29 of the 41 major industrial sectors registered growth in value added, accounting for 70.27%, and by products, 50.2% of the 623 products registered growth. And in the first 10 months, value added of the industries increased by 6.1%. Second, there's robust growth of equipment manufacturing. In October, value added of equipment manufacturing enterprises above designated size increased by 8%. And it pulled the growth of all such enterprises by 2.9%. And by sectors, car manufacturing, rail, ships, aerospace, and other transportation equipment manufacturing's value added increased by 16.8% and 15.2% year-on-year. And by products, steel ships for civilian purposes and generator set production increased by 21.4% and 16.9%. Third, there's stable growth in smart transition. Deep integration of the digital and real sectors is underway, and industrial development is progressing well in terms of high-end development and digitalization. In October, value added of high-end manufacturing and digital products above designated size increased by 7.2% and 6.7%. Robots are now seen in almost every sector. AI is empowering a new way of life. In October, smart in-vehicle equipment manufacturing increased by 28.4%, and the growth rate of industrial robots and IC increased by 17.9%, 17.7%. And fourth, there's robust growth in terms of green development. New energy products has generated growth. In October, lithium-ion battery for cars and new vehicles increased by 30.4% and 19.3%. Green transitioning is also registered growth when it comes to clean energy and green materials. In October, wind power generating unit and bio-based chemical fiber increased by 23.6% and 16.6%. And five, companies are generating more profit with the macro policies playing effect and the building of a unified national market. Such enterprises are recovering profit. In the first 9 months, the profits of such enterprises increased by 3.2%. That's 2.3 percentage points faster than the first 8 months. And the equipment manufacturing and high-end manufacturing's profit increased by 9.4% and 8.7% respectively. In general, with the effects of a combination of macro policies, industrial productions increased stably, and we've made progress in transitioning and upgrading. But also we need to see that there's not enough market demand and certain companies are still facing pressure. Looking forward, we need to push policies to have coordinated effect and expand the mass market, upgrade structure to continue to build a solid foundation for a real economy. Thank you. Next question, please. The month-on-month growth of PPI in October increased by 0.1%. That's the first time it increased this year. And the year-on-year decrease also narrowed. What are the factors behind this change, and how do you predict the PPI in the next stage? Thank you. PPI has shown some positive changes. Since the beginning of this year, due to multiple factors, PPI in general has been decreasing. With certain policies like expanding domestic demand has playing effect and policies in key sectors. Since October, the PPI has shown some positive changes. The year-on-year decrease has narrowed. In October, PPI continued to improve. In October, PPI's year-on-year decrease is 2.1%. That's 0.2 percentage point slower compared with last month. And it's 0.1% month-on-month increase. That's the first time it increased this year. This change is because of the regulation of competition order in the market, and also because of an increase in seasonal demand, also because of non-ferrous metals price increase. And the year-on-year decline in PPI narrowed is because of the following reasons. First, because policies for improving consumption has played effect. Since year, we've been expanding quality consumption products and unleashed the potential of certain products, including like recreation and sports consumptions. And manufacturing price for arts, crafts, and ceremonial goods increased by 18.4% year-on-year. Sports balls increased by 3.3%. Manufacturing price for nutritional foods increased by 2.1%. And second, because of the expanding of new drivers, with the faster green transitioning, new energy industries growing faster. So there's more need for batteries and energy storing equipment, which lead to the increase of materials. Also, price for the smelting, rolling, and process of non-ferrous metals also increased. Because of the upgrade of industries, the information and communication industries also has great development. In October, microwave communication equipment also increased by 1.8%. Ships and other relevant manufacturing, plane manufacturing's price increased by 0.9% and 0.5%. And third, the effect of our policies in key sectors also has been shown with the building of a unified national market, and the competition order of certain key factors has also led to the improve of prices. So in general, the positive change in PPI is conducive to improving the operation of companies and for economic circulation. Going forward, we need to expand domestic demand, unleash consumption potential, increase effective investment, and strengthen innovation-driven development and regulate the competition order to improve the reasonable increase of PPI.
Thank you. Since this year, all regions and departments have rolled out measures to restore the housing market. So how effective are they? What's your take on the housing market in the next stage? Thank you. The housing market has been one of the key issues of your concern. Since this year, all regions and departments have rolled out a series of supportive policies, actively unleashed demand for first home and better housing, and stem the downturn and restore stability of the housing market. Despite the fluctuations, the housing market has been positive, and the policies are beginning to take effect. First, the drop of commercial property sales is smaller. For the first 10 months, the area and volume of new commercial house sales dropped by 6.8% and 9.6%, respectively, which is 9 and 11.3 percentage points compared to the same period over last year. Second, destocking of commercial building continues to advance as measures continue to take effect, like controlling the increase and improving the stock. Since this year, destocking is also, by the end of October, there were 756 million square meters of commercial housing yet to be sold, less than 3.22 million square meters, smaller than the end of September. Third, financial situation of housing companies are improving. Driven by the positive factors such as the expansion of whitelist, the drop of housing companies' available funds became smaller. We need to point out that the housing market is still in a period of model shift, which takes time. In this process, some indicators will see fluctuation. We need to adopt an objective view on that. Going forward, we will focus on and implement the instructions of the CPC Central Committee and the State Council, implement the guiding principle of the Central Urban Work Conference, develop a new model for the development of the housing market, take into account both long and short-term issues and advance both the symptoms and roots of the issues, and continue to stabilize the housing market.
My question is, in the past period, some areas faced continuous rainy days during the harvest season. What impact will it play on autumn crop production, and what's your expectation for the annual crop production? Thank you for your question. Currently, we're at the final stage of autumn crop production, though certain areas are influenced by natural disasters, including droughts and floods. But generally, for most farming areas, the situation is pretty good. We expect a harvest here. First, the sown area has remained stable with a slight increase. This year, China has continued to improve policy framework supporting food production and continue to roll out policies benefiting farmers, and we continue to protect the motivation for local governments to boost grain productivity and for farmers to plant more food. First, per unit yield continues to increase. During the autumn crop production period, favorable coordination of light temperature and water remained good, and the climate and weather conditions are generally good. Though during the harvest season, the Huanghe, Huaihe, and Haihe area has had continuous rainy days, but because the production was basically established, so the impact on production was manageable. And third, the production of autumn crop is expected to increase this year because we've planted more high-yield crop like corn, so the production of autumn crop will increase. By region, most regions with autumn crop has generated stable growth, especially the 3 provinces in northeastern China, the Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang region, because they've improved their plantation. So in general, with these conditions, it is estimated that we'll have a harvest. Thank you. This is the end of the press conference. See you.